Hi, this video is about how and why we fog, and if it looks a little weird, it's because I'm using a video that I already made, and I'm dubbing over it to kind of explain it better than I did in the video that previously we watched. So first of all, I want to explain the why. So in the past, when somebody wanted to set up a new machine, they'd get a Windows disk, they'd pop it in the CD-ROM, they would do a complete format or wipe of the hard drive, they reinstall Windows, and then they would go about installing all the software that they wanted on a particular machine. The act of installing Windows may only take an hour, maybe even less depending on the processor and the speed of the hard drive. But after the install of Windows, there follows on to be normally hours of updates that are available for Windows to get it up to the current security patches and the current level of where Windows is. After that, you've got all the software that you're going to install, whether it be Windows software that comes from Microsoft, like the Microsoft Office Suite. That also has tons of updates. And you've got all the software things that appear on your laptop, which adds a few hours on top of that to make sure you've got the right versions, you've got the right patches. And in the end, depending on what you put on your system, you're talking about 5 to 10 hours of work to do a single system. So that stinks. And that would be an impossibility. In fact, that's the way it was when I first got here. Systems hadn't been updated forever, and that happens at many schools. They buy a system, and it just stays there until it dies, and then they do something about it. I don't believe in that policy. By continually updating and refreshing systems, there's a very low chance that they die. In fact, very few times has staff members called me, and I'm talking about less than one hand since 2003 when I got here, and said my computer died. And almost always it was because of a hard drive problem before we went to solid state drives. So what fogging does is it lets me keep one system updated, one image, a computer that's like my, here's my perfect computer. It's actually a virtual machine on a virtual server that I frequently update, do all the Windows updates, make sure it's got the current software, and then I repull a file that is a image of that computer. And then what fog lets us do is to send that to the hard drive of the computer in question. And I have several images, so it's very important that we send the right image, because if you send the wrong one, then you get the wrong files and you get the wrong programs. So we send fog to a hard drive in a matter of approximately 10 minutes. It can be as much as a half an hour if we're doing 10 at a time. That's really the maximum amount of time it takes. So I could do 10 systems in 30 minutes, one system in 10. It really doesn't get slower as you add more per system, if you think about it that way. But in that 10 minutes, it completely wipes the drive and puts that image of the perfect one that has no viruses, all the virus updates, all the software updates on that machine, and it really brings it back to a zero state. So if someone's got hardware driver issues, if someone's got antivirus or a virus issue, if somebody's got malware, if someone's just having any kind of Windows issues, by re-imaging it, we wipe that and take it away and put it back to where it was. Now, if we image and then there's a problem, then we think, okay, it's not the Windows load. Now we have to think, is it the hard drive? Is it the memory? There's other things that work together to cause that. But the premise of fogging is to wipe and rejoin the computer. Okay, so we hit F12 on our laptop to get to the choice to choose the network boot. And then we'd be right here on our laptop, and it would continue on. And this is it's talking to fog now to begin the boot to the fog screen, which should immediately bring up the next screen that we see, which is this one. Now, whether this has been connected to fog or not in the past is immediately obvious on the very top line. If the top line is blue or green, depending on what version of fog we're using, then it's already connected, it's already registered, fog already thinks it knows who it is. In this case, it says host is registered as VM-1064-staff. This is the image that is on a virtual machine. That's for a Windows 10 64-bit machine for staff members. It's a staff laptop image that I'm showing you right now. But if it comes up with the wrong name, or I've already imaged it and doesn't join the network, I might have to do something else, which is what I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through these things right now for you. So the first thing is boot from hard disk, and you see the 3 next to it, and that's because you have 3 seconds to hit the down arrow key and choose something else. After that 3 seconds is up, it immediately goes on to boot from the hard drive. The one underneath it says memtest86. That's the memory test we can run. The one after that is update product key. We do not do that here. The next one is the one we're going to use 99% of the time. It's deploy image. That's saying that it's registered right, you've got the right image right, it's ready to join the Active Directory, go. You hit deploy image, it's going to immediately start wiping the drive, and we'll see what that looks like here in just a second. Join multicast session, we don't use that one, but the one we're going to look at right now is quick host deletion. There's no way for you to make changes if somebody else did it incorrectly. They named it wrong, they picked the wrong image, they didn't tell it to join. So the only way to fix that is to delete it from FOG and then go back and rejoin it to FOG. So we're going to go down in this video and go down to the quick host deletion. We're going to choose that. It's going to say, are you sure? It's going to ask you for your username and password. And then it's going to come right back to the screen to let you do the follow on to that, which is to join it and make it part of FOG correctly. So when we pick that, it's going to say username and password. It's 3 A's and 4 A's. It says, are you sure? You have to hit Y to verify that you're sure. It's deleted. It comes right back to FOG then to allow us to register. And you can see up top now it says host is not registered. So now we're going to go through the process of joining it entirely, the whole process of making it part of FOG and joining it to our network. So normally we do deploy image. That's not going to work when it's not registered. So now we're going to do full host registration inventory. Do not use quick registration. It doesn't let you name it. It just says, what image do you want to send? Okay, here we go. You don't get to do anything else. That does not work for anything. So we have to do the full host registration inventory. The first thing it's going to ask us is, what do we want to name this computer? So we've picked it. It's going to come up to FOG. It's a very DOS looking screen. If you've never seen DOS before, shows this little FOG logo and ASCII characters, and then lets us pick the name for the machine. It's important that we get there. The names are always uppercase and they need to be right, because many things happen based on that name. If it's not right, it doesn't go in the right group. In the Active Directory, there's different groups for different classes to make sure they get what they're supposed to have. If it's a student one, I kind of let that go by really fast. I'm going to back up just a smidgen. Here, didn't get backed up enough. There we go. If it's a student one, it's S. All student ones start with S dash. If it's a student issued one, S-E2 dash the student username, 20J Smith. Some of those are going to get truncated off. Again, make sure it's right and make sure it's spelled right. If it's already in use, it's going to have an error, which means you needed to delete the old one. If, for instance, his is broken and we need to issue him another one, we have to delete the old one from the inventory in order to add a new one with the same name. Other student machines, if it's a student machine in the middle school, it's S-room number dash number. So S-412-23, whatever the particular one is that we're doing. Teacher machines are all T dash room number dash model. So most of them are Optiplex 790, so it's O790. Some of them are 990, some are 9920s. Just look at the front of the machine if you have to do that. It's very rare that you would be doing a staff machine. So after I type in the name of this machine and hit enter, the next thing it asks is, what image goes on here? There's a lot of images. There's over 85, I think, right now. For you guys, you're going to be using image 1 and number 2 the most. High school image is number 1. It's a 64-bit Windows 10 image. The middle school image is number 2. It's a 32-bit Windows image. That's why they need less memory and a smaller hard drive. They've in fact got your old hard drives from the high school. If you don't remember that, you can always hit the question mark and it will list out all the images that are available for you to choose. So if I hit the question mark, it's going to go through. These are in alphabetical order, not numerical order. So they're not on this page. So I can hit spacebar or enter, to get the next list. And the second list is where you can see here, student HS is number 1, MS is number 2, staff images number 4 and 53. These are the ones that we're going to use. Oh, and the elementary school images, what's in the elementary school computer lab. That's number 5. But really, 1 and 2 are the ones you're going to use on a daily basis. All you do is hit the enter then, or the number then, and hit enter, and it'll go to the next question. There's 8 questions you have to answer, 3 of which are really important. That was the most important one. I got to make sure the right image, the right files are going to the computer that I'm in the process of fogging. So I'm going to put the number in there. The next one says, do you want to associate the host with groups? No, just hit enter. That's why the N is big. So I just hit enter on that one. Do you want to associate with snap-ins? Nope, just hit enter. Would you like to associate with a product key? Nope, we don't do product keys. We keep the same ones that are on the Dell machines. The next one is the most important. Would you like this host to join a domain using default settings? And that's why I mentioned what the domain is. If you don't make it join the domain, you can't ever use the computer. So that's, even though it's defaulted to no, that's one of the ones you have to hit Y and make sure that it starts, that it's a yes. Every machine we do has to join the domain or it's not usable. So we hit yes on that. And then we've got 3 more questions that are no's. So you could really just hit enter, enter, enter for the next 3 questions. Primary user, we don't have primary users, so you can hit enter. Question after that, I think it's tags. Did I hit pause? I don't think I hit pause. Nope, it's still moving, just slow. Okay, is there a tag? No. So we just hit enter, enter for those 3. Would you like to deploy the image to this computer now? If you hit enter, no image goes and I have to come back into Fog and tell it to deploy. If you are doing this so that I can wipe this drive and make it work, that's when you hit Y and hit enter. But it doesn't actually deploy it yet. You have to come back into the network. No matter what answer I put on this one right here, it's going to finish doing what we told it to do, which is to register it. So when I hit yes, it means next time I come into Fog, it's going to register. Oh, by the way, it asks for our username and password again, 3 A's, 4 A's. So now it's doing the registering. Now it's putting all that information we just told it into Fog. It's telling it everything about this computer. And then it's going to reboot. And on a laptop, I have to sit there with F12 to get it back to here so that it will choose to boot to Fog. And now I've already told it to deploy. It's going to immediately start the deploying process, which is what it's doing right now. It's going to go through, it connects up to Fog, it's booting to an image on the network server, it's a network boot, and then it's going to start doing its thing. The first thing is it checks in, it says, hey, it's going to put Windows 10 on it, and now it's immediately starting to erase and repartition the master boot record and the partition tables of this hard drive. If you image a hard drive, it is wiped and everything is gone. It is really important that you know that before you get started. If you take a student's computer and just think, I'm going to wipe it, I'm not even going to say anything to them, you should ask them when you get the computer, hey, do you have all your stuff off of it? Is it on your network drive? Is it on the S drive, the H drive? Do you have it backed up? Because everything's going to be gone when I'm done. They need to say yes to that question. We don't wipe without asking because there's no way to recover that information. So it's going to erase the whole thing. This step right here looks like it's doing nothing. Takes a minute or 2 before it actually, so it's erasing first and then it's going to start writing all the stuff on there. So we're waiting for it to finish erasing, and then the writing process takes anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes, could be as much as 30 if we're doing 10 at one time. And by the way, Fog will only do 10 at one time. So this process can take a little bit, but once it gets going, it goes to the next screen, which you'll see is blue and red and white. You'll know that the imaging process is going on. But while it's waiting here, I want to stress the importance of when we take laptops from students, make sure every time you say, hey, does all your stuff backed up? Now, if the computer won't boot, if it's blue screening every time and they can't, we sometimes, if they say, oh no, I've got a really important paper on there, we'll take their hard drive out, give me their hard drive, and put a different hard drive in and wipe that different hard drive. And then they can tell me, and you get it right on a sticky, what do you need off this drive? And I will put it in a different drive bay and pull that stuff off for them so they don't lose it. That's if it's unbootable. If it's bootable, make them sit over there on the other table, move their stuff to their network drive. You might have to show them how to do it if they don't know. And then they'll do the backup. If they don't know how to, here we go, the next step, then we'll pull the drive. This is the actual act of the information getting on the hard drive. It's never right immediately as far as the time. So don't ever tell somebody it's going to be done in 3 minutes. Come back in 3 minutes. It usually takes a minute or two for it to resolve. And if all of a sudden another student starts imaging another one, it's going to slow down because this is based on right now, only one thing is imaging and it's on a virtual machine and it has tons of memory. It's going to image a little faster in this case. But you can see this one's going to be done in 3 minutes. So it's going to march across there, writing all those blocks and doing all that. And then when it's done with this screen, it should boot up the Windows. Can't get on it yet. It's going to rename itself while it's booted up the window. Then it's going to do a restart. And it's going to join the directory, the Active Directory on the second restart. Then it's going to do a policy update, restart again. And after that second restart, if everything worked right, you should be able to log onto the computer, do a GP update manually, and restart it one more time. And I'm going to show you what I mean by restart manually and GP update. There's no reason for us to watch this. It just continues to march across the screen, and then eventually the machine reboots. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. If I hit Windows R, I get that box that opens up, and I'm going to type in there CMD. You can just type this command right there, but I'm going to type CMD so it comes up so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I'm going to type GP update. All one word. It stands for Group Policy Update. We're updating this computer with the policies on the server to tell it things like Wi-Fi passwords and where it belongs and what it's allowed to do and stuff. Okay, so GP update space / that's the one next to the shift key, force. Meaning it's going to force it to get the group policy update as soon as I hit enter. Two things are going to happen. Number one, it may just close, meaning it's got all the policy updates it needs already, and it probably is good. The other one is going to say, hey, I need to restart to do these policy updates. Is it okay if I restart now? You hit Y and hit enter, and it will do a shutdown and restart to get policy on its own. Once it comes up after that restart, now is when we unplug it from the network. If it's connected to Wi-Fi, we should be able to log on again. It's good. Shut it down and give it to the other student, making sure they know that they have to log on before they go home. Frequently when we redo a machine, they forget that. They just take it home, and then I get an email saying I can't log on to my computer. And that's because it has to set up their account on this computer while they're connected to our network before they can get onto it somewhere else. Okay, that's the entire FOG process from start to finish. You're going to be doing it almost every day, if not every other day, for an entire semester. You will be FOG masters by the time we're done, but you need to understand the process and how to do it from the get-go. And that's it for a free open source Ghost or fogging a laptop or a PC.